Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Health Bar today, and happy Father's Day. I do really appreciate everyone coming on and watching this. Got a really cool guest today I'm super excited about. And but as always, we'll start with my own mental health. So my mental health this week it's actually been a little bit weird. I had my parents here, which was awesome. So catching up with my parents at the beginning of the week was really good. They went home middle of the week, and after that, as always, my mental health does dip quite a bit. So it has dipped, but also as well, I have really randomly, I don't know why, but I've started to kind of again get into my head about I need to do everything and I need to do it now. Which is really weird. Like, I have loads of ideas, and I'm sure everyone does, that come into their head, and I was like, right, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to make sure that this is running. Then all of a sudden I'm annoyed at myself because this isn't working, I'm annoyed because this isn't working, and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of gone into my head at the moment this week, which is quite frustrating. So yeah, my mental health has been a little bit up and down, but actually quite good. And obviously Father's Day today for me has been lovely. And I went out yesterday for a Father's Day kind of treat because I knew I was doing the podcast today. So we went out into Glasgow, and amazing tapas bar. I have to remember it for the people that are Scottish. I have to remember it. I think it won Scottish Restaurant of the Year like last year or something. It's a wicked tapas bar. Anyway, so I'll put it down if I can remember at some point in the chat. But yeah, so that's all about my mental health this week. So as always, we do talk about gaming and news and things like that. This week, I actually found a very interesting article which I think is going to affect quite a few people. So the article that I have found is all about. So it's actually on a website, esports-news.co.uk. The link of it is actually is going to be in the description, as we kind of for Twitter and Spotify. You can find the link there. But it is about esports casino betting. So I don't know really why they've called it casino betting, but they're talking about how esports is kind of such a big thing now, that big kind of communities are picking it up, like ESPN and other people like that. And they're talking about obviously betting, and I know people bet on games anyway. And I'm sure esports is a very similar thing for that type of thing with betting as well. But they're actually going to start doing like odds and betting halfway through matches and halfway through esports games, and which is great for, it's really hard to say, it's great for esports because it's going to get esports out there a lot more, and it's going to show people what esports is all about. The only issues I have is that if you have a gaming addiction or a betting addiction, I think this is going to be a real problematic. I can see it being really kind of, a lot of people are going to struggle because of it. But the article's really good, as I say. Read it, have a little look, and hopefully they'll obviously, because we know when COVID happened, we know that online gambling and online gambling addiction reached an all-time high. So now they're bringing this out, it kind of worries me a little bit. But anyway, it is what it is. People do need to make money, I suppose. So yeah. Okay, apart from that is all the news that we have for today. But as I say, we do have our guest today. I am very excited. So I've known Makashi now for a little while through a couple of the other IOP, It's Only Pixels people. And then when we decided that we were creating It's Only Pixels Discord, we obviously wanted to have him involved. And yeah, it's been awesome. And we've gamed quite a bit together. And it's been great. So I'm going to let him introduce himself anyway. But here he is. If I get this all right, that is totally wrong. There we go. I knew it would go wrong. But here is Makashi. Welcome. Welcome. Look at
Hello.
that gamer
Do you
dad.
have
Look
audio?
at that.
You have
Yeah,
audio.
I have
I'm in.
audio.
I'm
So
in.
yes, so welcome. Really appreciate you
Thank you
coming
very
on,
much.
dude, and happy Father's Day, mate. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
So yes, introduce yourself. Tell everyone who you are and what games you play and all that type of stuff.
Cool. Yep. So I'm Makashi Games. My real name's Joe. I've been streaming nearly 2 years now, but it doesn't feel like that, especially in the last 6 months because I've been very inactive. But yeah, I went pretty hard for the first, oh my God, 13 months. I
Yeah.
think I was doing like a 24-hour stream every month or something. It was
Jeez.
nuts.
Yeah.
I was wrecking it. I ended up paying the price physically for it as well. So we'll
Yeah.
probably get into some of that later because that's
Okay.
definitely impacted my mental health. But
Yes.
so I do enjoy the streaming primarily for the like community side of it, having people that you know and the names you recognise popping into chat, saying hello.
For
So
sure.
that was a big push. That was one of the main reasons that pushed me to move towards IOP and like getting rid of my own Discord and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the other like candid reality is I just don't find the time or energy to do all the social stuff like farming content out into TikTok and all that. I just don't do it.
Yeah.
So I think being part of a group basically carries me a bit.
Yeah, it helps for sure. 100%. I agree.
Not just in the games, but in IRL as well. So yeah, like that's really good. But yeah, so professionally, I've been in software development for God, 15 years or something. Jesus Christ,
Okay.
17 years.
Wow.
But I was mostly a software tester until the last like 9 months where I've moved into being a product manager. So I do that a lot. I've been very lucky. So basically, since I started streaming, I worked full time when I started in the July, and then I left employment in the November, and then I had like 6 months off.
Yeah.
Where I just streamed, just chilled and streamed, and I had savings.
Nice.
And then when I went back to work, I went part time. So since April last year, I've been part time.
Okay.
And that's likely to change again soon. Lastly, I got a 5-year-old daughter. She recently turned 5, so she's like most of my life is actually centered around her.
Yes.
I don't live with her. I don't live with her mum. So it's kind of, for me, it's a good balance because it means I get weekends like this where I'm just chill as and alone and just in solitude, and then like next weekend is to chaos, but that's fine because I can balance it. So
nice.
It's all good.
Awesome.
And that's kind of my life in a nutshell. Sat at this desk for 18 hours a day.
Yes.
Unless I got my daughter, and then I was sat downstairs being ignored over the telly. But yeah, it's
that's what it's about being a parent, ain't it? I suppose that's what it's all about, mate. So
mate, it's yeah.
But I honestly, I massively appreciate you coming on to do this. I really, really do. Like, it's I always kind of am super like happy that people are brave to kind of like open up and talk out, and and it's been kind of ever since I kind of done this and started like a it's good to talk section on the IOP Discord and all that. Like, obviously you've jumped in there and other people jumped in there talking about how their days are and how their mental health is, and which has been amazing. That I applaud you for kind of jumping in and doing that. So let's talk about, shall we say, how obviously gaming wise, if you've been in development and things like that, gaming wise, I'm guessing you started at a young age.
God, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was your first kind of console then, or first?
I had a Commodore 64, mate.
Yes, love it.
What's the name of the game? I can't remember, but it was like, you're like an egg.
Dizzy.
And you'd run it. Dizzy's Adventures.
Dizzy Adventures.
They were like my first ever games when I was first getting into it.
Yeah.
I used to get really frustrated, actually. I'm an only child.
Yeah.
And, born in 89, so grew up in the 90s, like Labour government sort of education, right? Like participation medals and all that stuff. So I think, like, as a young'un, I wasn't well prepared to lose.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't used to losing. I'm also quite bright. I'm a lot taller than a lot of people of my age. So, like, when I was in school, I found it quite easy to excel. And so gaming was like a complete shocker to me because I just couldn't do it.
Why couldn't I do this level? Why couldn't you?
Yeah, I used to melt. I used to fall apart. Literally breakdown. You got a little insight into some of that during the Tarkov League, actually.
Yes.
Um, it's the same emotions. I can feel like within that same little boy getting frustrated
Yeah.
and wanting to just throw the disc at the wall.
Yeah.
And literally, like I've got a memory of on the PlayStation 1 there was a game called Dynasty Warriors. I think they've carried on releasing them over years,
Yeah.
but I don't know why it happened. I think I was like frustrated. It was on my birthday. I had loads of my mates round, and literally like this one boss beat me, and I just caught like I lost my temper. Sorry, that's a Portsmouth term.
Yeah.
Opened the thing, pulled the disc out, and just lobbed it at the wall, and everyone was like, "Oh, okay." So we're not playing that anymore then. So I've had a few like gaming has it's always been in my life.
Yeah.
Um, but I have definitely had quite a mixed relationship with it. I think
Yeah.
definitely,
It's
yeah.
weird, isn't it? I think it is. I think, especially kind of when it comes to, I think our, I'm 82, my birthday. So, like, again, we were brought up with kind of so many different games and so many, and I think when I was definitely younger, like it was kind of fun. Then it was kind of getting into like the level games, as you say, like Fantastic World of Dizzy and all the Dizzy games. Then obviously later on within like Crash Bandicoot and all that kind of stuff. And with me, Crash was like the best game ever. But then all of a sudden, it was so freaking hard, and you would get so frustrated, and you'd have your, as you say, you'd have your anger issues and your meltdown, and and the thing is, in a strange way, I do believe you need that, because it kind of gives you an understanding of who you are as a person and how you deal with them situations. And but yeah, I do. I remember like some of them games I used to absolutely rage at, and I even bought Crash Bandicoot when it came out remastered for the PS4, and I bought it, and I was like, this is going to be the best thing ever. Oh my God. I love it, but I also hate it. I couldn't do it. I literally couldn't do it. And I was like, this is a joke. I remember this being the best game in the world,
Damn.
and I'm getting annoyed at it. And I literally haven't, I don't think I've even got anywhere near like halfway completed it. Like, because I was like, I'm not playing it anymore. Can't do it. Go back to Fortnite, thanks. When it all came out, I was like, I'll play Fortnite.
Uh-huh.
Done. So yeah, I definitely understand that kind of love hate relationship younger as a gamer for sure, like totally for sure.
Mm.
Which I find
So
really
yeah,
interesting.
I think it. Yeah, it's always been in my life. It's just always a thing. I think it's definitely recently. Actually, it's been something I've been kind of internally exploring quite a bit because
Okay.
I've had a few like revelations about my relationship with it. So like, I kind of have grown to build my life around gaming. Like I opened just now by saying like my life's kind of built around my daughter, and that is true
Yep.
at that level of like, I deliberately earn less to be part time, to be there for her more and
Of
stuff like that.
course.
Like the big adult concerns. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, when I think about the day to day living, right,
Yep.
like literally just every day, like what is my driving force?
Yep.
It literally is like to get back on the computer and game. Like
Yep.
that is it's like my safe space, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the place I'm driven to return to each day, each time anything goes wrong, anything's too hard, can let all that go and just lose myself in a game. So that definitely exists.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's healthy or
Yeah.
not, I'm not
I
sure.
was just gonna bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm starting to get the impression it might not be.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it's an interesting thing, but I've only recently noticed it in myself. It's like it is such a deep like yearning to get back into a game,
Yeah.
even if and of like yesterday's a prime example where we had like in our town they have a gala. It's a
Yep.
Scottish thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the whole village gets together. So I went to that for a few hours.
Yeah.
Um, came back here, and then I was like, it's like dry humping games. Do you know what I mean? It's like I was like playing them because I got the time to play them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I wasn't really like getting stuck in. I wasn't getting immersed. I wasn't getting satisfaction out of it. It was just
Yeah.
spending time gaming.
Yeah. Just doing it. Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like I ended up calling it a day and just being like, right, I need to just like analyze what is this about? Like, why am I doing this? Because there's so many things, like there's chores that I could be doing right now that I've
Mm-hmm.
not done, and so
Yep.
I actually nipped it in the bud and went and got some bits done, and that felt a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been like, it is just a really interesting situation in my life. I think my relationship to games
Do
and
you,
just how
yeah.
constant it is.
Do you know what? It's
It's
very weird because you saying this, like obviously, as you say, you got a daughter, and obviously you're not obviously with her mum, and I think I would be very very similar to you, as in my life would revolve around games because it's a weird thing because we have obviously real life friends. But are you trying to
sorry,
focus
I'm
your camera?
blurry.
That's all
I
right.
just
That's all
noticed.
right.
Yeah, I just noticed.
We
Sorry.
have like real life friends, but a lot of them live quite far away and all that kind of stuff to me. And so my whole social life really is online. And, it's really bizarre because like even you and me, we're in a WhatsApp group together, with a few of the other people, and I've never met any of you. But we get on and we talk and we have a laugh, and it's that whole kind of, that is. So I feel that, again, when I have any spare time that I'm not obviously looking after little un, or because obviously I'm a stay-at-home dad, so my life is revolved around the little un all the time. And then when I kind of get a spare moment, or I'm not watching a film with the missus, or eating whatever, and then I'll jump on the computer, I will try and jump on the computer every spare minute of the day that I do get that time. And I could see myself really getting into a very very not healthy place if it is, though. It's true. Honestly, I truly
It's
believe for
so easy, mate.
me it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
it
It
is.
really
And
is.
like I live that, right? So like this is one of the weekends where, for example, before I ended up in hospital over New Year and Christmas for like
Yes.
3.5 weeks. So it was rough. Before that, I didn't have any noticeable physical ailments or anything. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
in a really good place, and so when I was streaming, I was going hard.
Yeah.
And there were multiple weekends where, like my minimum, it was a joke that my minimum stream length was about 13 hours. Like if I go live, I'd be live for 13 hours. I'd go for three pisses and maybe one crap in that time, and maybe eat.
That's
But I would be
mad.
live for like an insane amount of time, and I can just do it. I can
Yeah.
just zone out, and I can just keep gaming for an unhealthy amount of time.
Yeah.
Um, and I've completely lost. Yeah, yeah, sorry, yeah. So that became the normal pattern. Was
Yeah.
like I'd have my daughter for a weekend where I'd be an adult, and then the next weekend I'd have a blowout where
Yep.
I'd spend 40 hours live over
Yeah.
4 days or something. Um, and I've had to change that a lot after going into hospital, mainly because I just can't physically stay sat at the desk for as
Yeah. Of
long, which is actually like a blessing. It's like there's a lot of,
course.
like, my ex, for example, keeps saying to me like, "What are you doing about your stomach?" And it's like, do you know what? Like, I haven't said this to her, but there's part of me that's like, it's actually a good thing. Like, yeah, I know it sucks that I've got these physical limitations, but
Yeah.
actually, if I have the operation and then it's gone, or at least remedied for now,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be enabled again to sit here for inordinate hours and
Yes.
fucking.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a challenging one for me because it's like I am literally, I can't pick my daughter up and swing her around
Yeah.
because I could end up in hospital by doing it.
Yeah.
But by having that limitation, I'm actually stopping myself sitting here for as long, and I think I need to let that become normal. I need to get to the point where, like, maybe doing a few hours and then getting up and walking around and
Yeah.
doing some chores and then coming back is
Mm-hmm.
normal before I can trust myself to actually get that fixed. Because I'm just like, I know for a fact I'll just fall back into the old patterns of just being sat here for like 20 hours and then
True. Yeah.
have like 6 hours sleep and then get up and do it again and then be knackered at work. And
Yeah.
that's the like, that's where it becomes really bad. It is blatant addiction. This is what it comes down to, though. Like, I think
Yep.
I am an addict. I know I'm an addict. I've
Yep.
come to terms with that. Like, I've been through different processes to attempt to address it, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it is just the case that my upbringing and how the cards like fell for me
Yeah.
meant I've got that now, and that's just a property of who I am.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that obviously I attempt to limit the impact that has on my life,
Of
but
course.
also accept that it is part of my life. Like, we yeah, it's really hard to know if there is a cure for addiction. Do you know what I mean? Because it's so subjective. Like
I
you can go to an
yeah
addict who's recovering or recovered,
yeah
and they can demonstrate to you that they've not done the same acts that they were doing before. But the thing is, addiction isn't about what you're attaching your addiction to at that time. It's
yeah
a much deeper thing than that, right?
I
It's
agree.
we can attach our addiction to anything. I can You can attach your addiction to a loved one
Yeah
and just become so focused on them and servicing their needs and making them happy that you don't even realize it's an addiction because it is a good
yeah
thing.
yeah, yeah of course.
It's an addiction.
Yeah,
So this is where it gets so hard,
it
right?
is.
I don't think there is a cure for addiction.
Yeah,
I think personally.
I think you're bang
So
on
I think
right.
to me, I think
I
it's
truly
just
believe.
about
Yeah.
trying to limit the damage it has
Yep.
in my life.
Honestly, though, I think you're really right there. Like, there's so many people, as you say, that are going through either rehab or, that have come out the other side, and which is amazing. But you look at some of these people that have had, like, you always look at celebrities because they're the ones that you can always see in the headlines more than anything, and the ones that go to rehab and they're brilliant and they've come out the other side. But then you look at it further down the line in a few years' time or something like that, and I'm not saying they get addicted to drugs again or whatever it was before, but there is definitely an addiction somewhere of something else. Like, even if it's an addiction of throwing themselves into the business or that work or whatever they do, that still is an addiction. And as you say, that then is a positive addiction as long as that doesn't affect your physical health and mental health, and as long as it's, it can be bad, but as long as it's, you kind of, as you say, you limit it and you kind of understand that you have this addiction, I think, yeah, I do. I don't think it can go away. And I truly think that mental health is very similar. And I think that with mental health, I don't really think there's a cure. I think it's how you deal with it on a daily basis and how you personally get by, and how you personally not fix yourself, but how you keep it at bay, is the kind of thing. Like, people go to the gym, and they're like, yeah, that's kind of the way I deal with it. And it is, it's a great way of getting, for mental health, it's brilliant, it's fantastic. I mean, I should definitely do it more, but I don't. Again, it's time and money and all that kind of stuff as always. But again, for me, this is a great help for me personally, is this, thus us two chatting. For me, my mental health works really well when I'm chatting or when I'm streaming and there's people in the chat. And again, sometimes my mental health can disappear really for the bad mental health side can disappear for a good month or so and then come back huge. It's always going to be there, I believe, always. It's just how you manage it, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%.
Is the right way of saying it.
Have you found, when did you move to Scotland?
So I moved to Scotland now about a year. Just over a year.
Oh shit! All
Yeah,
right, get
so
ready. Oh
just
no!
over
So
a
you
year.
just done one winter here?
Yes.
Okay. Like I would have to say that I'm from the very south coast of Britain, right? I'm from
Yeah.
Portsmouth, so you can't get really more south other than Cornwall.
Yeah.
So I didn't realise how used to, like, having what am I just trying to say? The seasonal variation is so
Oh my
big
god, yeah.
between up here and down there. I
Yeah.
didn't know that it was this big, and I'm at 100%. I have no doubt. Been here 7 years now,
Yeah.
and the seasonal variation has affected my mental health
Yeah.
without doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recommend preparing for that
Yeah.
enough, because it is fucking relentless up here. Like,
Yeah.
the environment is a bit of a knock on your mental health,
Mm-hmm.
because like it just, like, at the moment we get 4 hours of darkness,
Yeah.
and like where it's proper dark.
Yeah.
And so like my daughter at the moment is just fucked because she just can't process that if it's light it might not be time to get up. She just don't get it, so she'll get up at 4.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't get up at 4, mate. Like, that's not an option. You can't get up. And then she's like, why? It's light. I'm awake. I feel
Yeah.
rested. Why can't I just like start watching 10? I'm like, it's 4 in the morning. What are you
Yeah.
talking
Exactly.
about?
It's really funny you say that, because when my parents were up here, they said exactly the same. Like, we're sitting there, like, sitting there chatting away, watching TV or whatever at 11, half 11, and it's like it should be like 8 o'clock in the evening, and it's like that light and it's crazy. My mum and dad literally couldn't figure it. They were like, it's crazy because obviously I'm originally from Essex, so and I was originally from
Oh,
Essex,
basically the same.
and then we moved to I was in Gloucester, so southwest. And again, weather was, you'd always get the nicer weather out of the UK, being southwest, and then coming up here, I knew it was going to be a struggle because so I've lived up in Scotland before, and we lasted nearly 6 7 months, and then that was it. So yeah, I definitely know what it's like. It's yeah, you are right. I think weather wise, and this is why people say like if you can move to a warmer climate and all that kind of stuff, it is going to be better for you. I mean, of course it is. A bit of sunshine. We all know vitamin D is great for you. We know it. We know all the facts and figures, but sometimes you can't change where you live. As you say, your daughter's up here, so you're never ever going to move, because obviously you want to be near your daughter. It's the same with me. Like my mother-in-law had a severe accident, so we had to move up here. So it's sometimes you can't. Yeah, you can't choose where you're going to live. It just happens, So, so
100%.
that's it really. So, and yeah, so it is. It's one of them. I totally get it, but yeah, it is rough sometimes. I do definitely agree with you on that. So, but then talking
I
about
think,
mental
yeah.
health. Go on, sorry, go on.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think that's one of the bits that has impacted me most with that element, like the environmental element
Hmm.
of mental health, has been it's just like waking up in the morning and it's just miserable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they
Hmm.
call it dreek in Scottish,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. I do, yeah.
it is like it is that word to me. It's
Hmm.
like onomatopoeia because it literally describes like the feeling
Yeah,
inside, like just the feeling of like disappointment
yeah,
in existence
yeah,
almost because it's just like right, so I'm gonna
yeah,
start. It's windy, it's low visibility, it's
yeah.
drizzly, it's not even wet. I can cope with it raining, but it's like, I find that starting the day
Yes.
really pulls the rug out from under my feet, man.
Yep.
And it can be really hard to like nose up from that and
Hmm.
get to higher like plane where you're like
Yeah, of
actually a
course.
positive force.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? Like I
yeah. I
feel like
totally agree. Yeah,
it's that's one of the sides that is the combination of that and then gaming. When they come together, I feel like I can start to tip my mental health a bit
yeah,
over the edge because it can be like, oh, it's a shit day. I just want to give up on everything and just
yes,
game the day away.
yeah,
And then by the end of the day, I feel shame because I'm like, I could have done all this
yeah, yeah,
stuff
yeah,
and I
yeah, of
didn't do
course.
anything with it.
Yeah,
And that's where it like you start to fuck yourself a bit.
yeah,
It's a tough one. So I find that with the environment side. Other than that, I mean, I mostly have my blackout blind up and my light
yeah.
on, so
But
I
it's
don't
it's
actually
it's
notice it as
so true
much.
though, because imagine
But
if you had a beautiful kind of like, I don't know, balcony or patio that looked out over the coast or whatever, and the sun was shining. You get out, you make your bed, you make a bit of breakfast, your coffee, you sit outside and drink your coffee in the sun looking over the sea. Your day's brilliant,
yeah,
right? And honestly, it's
19
true.
degrees,
Yeah, but this is
salt
it.
sea smell.
The thing is, right,
Yeah,
well, so my mate lives in Ibiza, and he's been bugging us for years to go and live out in Ibiza, like bugging and bugging and bugging. Me and the missus, we've travelled and we've lived abroad and all that kind of stuff, and here's something we would probably do in the future again. Um, but obviously, at this moment in time, we can't do it. But he constantly bugs. So we went and saw him a couple of years ago, and it was that I would wake up in the morning and I would make myself a coffee, and his balcony looked over the sea, over his pool, over the sea, like infinity pool. Like it was just stunning, right? And we'd sit there, and I'm like, oh my god, like my life is just like, and this is like 8 o'clock in the morning. I feel like the best I can ever be at 8 in the morning. So you can definitely understand how weather and all that will affect people's, like, 100% their mental health. Like it really does. But so
yeah.
with obviously mental
So
health wise, where did it start for you, if you don't mind me asking, and how, and
um,
or is it just creeped up and it's just been an issues that way?
I think I think we were part of an odd generation because I think we were sort of exposed to some of these. Certainly, I think the veil was dropped for our generation about the idea of like hard man, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of media pushed quite hard when we were growing up to demonstrate that a lot of people that present like a really hard exterior to the world
Yep.
are more than likely managing internally a lot of trauma and stress and pain, and that us feeding that hard exterior actually doesn't help them. Like, I
Yeah.
think that that was communicated to us
Yep. I
in a
agree.
lot of different medias. Like, everything was constantly banging on that drum.
Hmm.
So I think, like, for me, it started with my dad, with like, because my dad was a lot older. He's dead now, bless him. Like, he
Okay.
died in November, so this is a bit of a
Oh, sorry
bittersweet
to it. Yeah.
Father's
Yeah.
Day as well. 'Cause it's my first of outing, but it's all right. But yeah, he was he's old enough to be my mum's dad. It's
Right.
fucked up. It's
Okay.
like, so he was 87 when he died
Yeah.
last year.
Okay.
So he grew up in World War II in
Yeah.
Malta, like the most heavily bombed place on planet Earth
Yeah.
since records began. He remembers that happening. So
That's
his
mad.
upbringing was fucked,
Yeah.
like real fucked. And so a large part of my upbringing was brought up almost in the shadow of his trauma, if
Uh
that
huh.
makes sense.
Yeah. Of
Like,
course.
it was obvious that he'd been through all this stuff, and then he'd
Yeah.
had a rough journey as well, where he got conscripted into the British Army and sent to Malaysia to kill people so that he
Jesus.
could stay here. Like, fucked up, man. Um, and so a lot of my upbringing was first world problems,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And a lot of my challenges and a lot of my concerns and difficulties were diminished by the realities of what he went through.
Yeah.
And that I ended up paying for in the end, because it's not my fault. Like,
Yeah. Of
I'm
course.
feeling X, right? I'm feeling X and it feels shit. And I'm
Yeah.
looking for support from like my role model, my dad.
Hmm.
But then I'm not getting support. I'm getting that diminished and told, actually, when I was a kid, I starved and lived in a
Yeah.
cave. So who are you to moan that I'm trying to feed you beef mince
Yeah.
rather than chicken? Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trivializing my challenges. So that's, I think, one of the ways where it started.
Yeah.
And then, um, so there was but it was kind of like a vicious cycle as well, because some of these like veils have been dropped. I was also challenging him. Like, I was asking him questions about how he grew up.
Yeah.
I was asking him things. I was asking him to answer honestly questions he'd never even been asked before,
Right.
about like, how did you feel
Yeah. Of
when you were in
course.
that position, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a really interesting process. It was kind of like a double-edged sword, because by having that inquisitiveness and by wanting those answers,
Hmm.
it's not like he wasn't saying to me like, get a hold of yourself, man.
Yeah.
Like, um, these aren't real problems. I had these problems. I was doing it to
You do it
myself. Like,
yourself.
I was asking him these questions, getting these honest answers about his experience, and then contrasting it with mine and saying, do you know what? Like,
This is nothing compared
who the
to.
fuck am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, who the fuck am I to whinge and moan about these little like my Game Boy's not charged. Ugh! When he was getting like touched by priests and stuff in Malta when he was a kid, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
but like, my
Yeah.
problems were real, and they were real, and that was what I saw in myself. Was
Yeah.
like, I'd I think I definitely didn't have parents that had had the same level of education about mental health at all.
Hmm.
So they didn't have the tools to notice this or
Yeah.
to manage it. My education system
Yeah.
seems to have
Jeez.
no
Yeah. Yeah.
fucking interest in my mental health. Like,
Yeah.
literally, the education system was exclusively interested in how I performed in exams.
And how that school was
So
then looked at by other people. Hmm.
yeah,
That was our
so
generation for sure.
literally,
Yeah.
our generation were a bit shafted, I think, because ultimately in a positive way.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like we were spoken about mental health.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
told about mental health, but we weren't in a world that could actually manage people
Yes.
that had been enlightened to the mental health
Yeah.
journeys that we need to go on. So I think that was where it's always been quite challenging.
Yeah.
Um,
It
for
is
me,
true,
I
isn't it?
found.
Like
Sorry,
I
you
was
carry on.
saying, it is true, isn't it? That whole era of, and it's actually quite strange. We were actually talking about this the other day when my parents were here, and we were talking. It was a food thing, and I always remember as a kid, especially my grandparents, and they were very much like, I'd eat dinner, and they're like, you have to finish your dinner, and then you can get a dessert. right? And I'm like, okay, I'll have to, and I hate, and I didn't really want to eat it and hated it, and then I'd get a dessert, and it's funny because obviously that's crazy. It's like, I can't eat this dinner because I'm full already, but I'm gonna eat this dinner to make myself even fuller, to then eat a dessert that I really don't want to eat, but I massively want to eat. And I think that's a massive thing with obesity and things like that. I think that's a huge thing. But then back in their day, as you say, they were eating half a piece of bread. So you would literally have to eat everything. You will not get anything else. You'd have to have that broth, and something else, and you're not getting anything else. So that's it. You have to eat that. And and it was that whole thing of, and it was back then, and, male, you have to, man up, you have to look after your family, you're the bread provider, you're this, you're that, you can't ever look weak, you don't cry, you don't, and that was our dads, our grandparents, our, great grandparents. That was always the way. And, yes, that was a whole, it was good that people, because sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes you have to look strong. You do. You have to, be strong for someone else. I totally understand that. But we are vulnerable. We need to show our vulnerability. We need to, otherwise things aren't ever going to get fixed. Well, not fixed.
And
but,
I think critically, the statement you said there about sometimes you have to be strong isn't gendered, right?
Yeah, of course it's not.
We allowed it to become gendered in society
massively.
and say men must always be strong, but actually there's many times when women need to be strong as well, and it's nothing to do with gender, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's I think yeah, society got really skewed, right?
Yeah, massively.
We seem to have just taken the archetypes of paternal and maternal archetypes and then just said that's what men and women are.
Yes.
Like as if a woman can't be paternal or a man can't be maternal, and we just decided dogmatically that's how we're going to run things.
Yeah.
That was everyone just towed the line, and I think a big part of that came from the fact that they didn't have exposure to other cultures,
No,
right?
definitely not. Yeah.
The only exposure to other cultures they had was in the newspaper, and it was vetted and edited and based on what the government wanted them to think. So
and still kind of is that way today.
It kind of is, but we got stuff like Twitch, right?
Yes.
We can cut through the bullshit and just watch someone live in the Philippines streaming. We might not be able to understand them, but you get a flavour of their culture.
Yep, I agree.
And I think that's where there's so many avenues that have led to this mental health revolution almost. I do feel strongly that it is one of the greatest things our generation can give to humanity is just take all the baggage and bullshit away from the fact that sometimes we feel like shit.
Yep.
And that can mean different things to different people. But when it's happening, we need to respect that and ask what people need. And it's not even I was taught this as a toddler. I'm pretty sure my mum was taught this as a toddler. But then for some reason, there's a bit where we go, actually, we know we taught you that. We know we said you should share, but now that you're in a job, fuck sharing. Own everything you can and sell it for a profit.
It is. It's so bizarre, isn't it? It's so bizarre, and it is.
The system gaslights you from day one.
I know it really does, and also as well, I do bring this up a lot, social media and other things like that. I always remember chatting to a friend of mine over COVID when it first came out. And she had a friend, and honestly, this is mind blowing. Okay, she had a friend of hers, and this shows you how much the media and how much your mind then works, and etc. etc. But it basically, she read a story. Her friend, this is not her. She read a story on Facebook, and it was something about COVID not being real and being fake and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, so she'd read that article. And because she read that article, as Facebook does, and everything else does, it pushes you in that whole direction of either fake news or whatever you want to call it, or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden she read another article, another. And then she fully believed that the government, there was tunnels underground, and the government were hiding children underground,
right?
And then all of a sudden the lockdowns and all that, they did the lockdown so they could get the kids out and move them to different places. I'm like, what? But I mean, this is the rabbit hole that this woman went down and fully believed
I
it. And that
This
is
is fascinating.
social
I
media.
literally, I have a cousin in Australia. I've never met him.
Yeah.
But I've like my surname's super rare. There's very few of us left on planet Earth, so
Yeah.
I've made an effort to reach out to
Nice.
people
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
got chatting to this guy, and he seemed like a lovely guy.
Yeah.
And then as COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
started to hit his bottom line. Right, he owns his own business. He
Yeah.
couldn't run his business. It started to impact him,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he got into that negative pattern of trying to find answers. He wanted reasons why
Yes.
better than just there's this thing. And he went down exactly the same path and
Yeah.
went fully, like, literally was posting on Facebook about how Trump is the second coming of God, of Jesus,
Oh,
and that
wow.
Trump is the one that sees the truth of QAnon, that Q is guiding them to this light of revolution and all this shit. And I was like, mate,
Wow.
like, you don't know what you're fucking talking about. You have been suckered by a marketing machine here.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so for context, like, I've been deep in the conspiracy scene for
Yeah, see,
like
I like conspiracy. I do.
20 years.
I love conspiracies.
And by that I mean like I don't subscribe to the idea that there is like a group of people pulling the strings.
Mhm.
I'm pretty certain there's not, but there is like big decisions that have been made that have set the boundaries of possible decisions and experience, right? Like capitalism being um innately like coupled to democracy. Like we've made this decision that capitalism and democracy are the
Mhm.
same. Like if you attack capitalism and say everything for profit's bad, you're then saying voting is bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they're completely different
Yeah.
paradigms concerned with different concepts of society, but they've just become one. And like communism and fascism being linked together, like we've allowed these sort of ideas to be so rigid and
Yeah.
firm in society that, and it makes it so hard to navigate conversations around this concept of like there are people that do obviously bad things
Yeah.
for selfish reasons,
Yep.
and sometimes they agree to do it in advance behind closed doors. Like to suggest that that doesn't happen and that it's all a conspiracy, like that's the bit
Yeah.
that gets me, is like there are conspiracies, we've proved that they happened.
Yeah.
um, the COVID one is unlikely to be a conspiracy. There's a lot of dodgy shit around COVID. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But to take the next step and say, oh, it's a complete false flag. There's not even a real virus called like
right?
SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah.
And it's actually all about this like paedophile elite
Honestly,
devil worship people.
there's a lot. It's funny. I mean, I agree. I think, and that's the thing with social media and your mental health and that. I really do believe there is a lot of people that get sucked in, and and it is a lot of things, even not even with kind of organisations, but people. And I said this on my last podcast, and I know someone, and she runs a business, so she's running a business, which is absolutely fine, but she makes herself look like she is somewhere beautiful and amazing every day. And looks like she's doing it, but it's not. It's just a stack of loads of stuff she done on a holiday or she done on a trip while she was away, and she's posting it every day to make sure and it is. But you would look at, if you didn't know that, you would look at that and go, oh my god, her life is fucking amazing, and oh my god, I want to be her. And then all of a sudden, this is your life is bad. You want something else. Grass is greener, when we all know grass is never greener on the other side. It's always the same, but you're just moving your shit with you to somewhere else, or you have to kind of look at yourself, and that's, I think, with a massive issue with social media and your mental health and things like that. But it will never change. It will only get worse. It will only get worse, and this is why, this is why I want podcasts, like this and other mental health kind of, charities and people that talk out and all that kind of stuff to talk about it more, because I truly believe this is one of the ways we can get people to just start talking about their mental health and realizing themselves, actually, I am doing okay. I'm doing better than okay. It's just in my head where it's turning and thinking I'm doing shit. And I do, because 100%. I think about it all the time. We actually spoke about it the other day on our Discord, where someone was saying that, it was Dr. Steph, actually, she's been on the show, on the podcast, and she was saying that, you know, she thinks about all this kind of stuff and it just keeps going round, and she thinks she should be doing more. And you even admitted it, saying that you sat on a computer and you feel that you should be doing more. You're doubting yourself. You're the one being horrible to yourself. And as soon as you start talking about it and realizing, okay, this is just a shit day. You know, tomorrow's going to be a better day. I know it's always the hardest thing, and it's always easy to talk, like, you know, in your head and try and do it, but it's not easy to do it. You know, we always know that, like, you know, when you're struggling the hardest, you can't get out of bed. You can't, you know, get in the shower. You can't do the simple things. So we know it's difficult. And I'm not saying it as in, you know, we need to do this. And, you know, I've been there. I've been through the worst times, possible times, and, you know, and I've been through the great times. So I've got to understand, and I still go through shitty days. You know, that's why I always at the beginning of the show tell my story of my mental health that week, because it's always up and down. It's a roller coaster, you know. But I truly think people have just got to be nicer to themselves.
100%. Every single, I think the path to depression and the path to, other than like a genetically predisposed,
Yes, yeah, of course,
genetic, like unavoidable depression, but it's demonstrable that we can push ourselves towards depression. I think that path is generally internal, right? Like,
yes.
Even if there's an external catalyst, like you might have an abusive parent or an abusive partner that is saying negative things to you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can live in that environment. It's when they allow that voice to get in their own head and start saying it to themselves.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes dangerous. That's when suddenly the world starts to have a cloud over it, and getting out of bed seems pointless because what the fuck, I'm a piece of shit. Like, 100% can relate to that.
And
It's horrible to be in that place.
And that's where that suicidal thoughts come from and all that kind of stuff, you know. And people still, I'd never been suicidal, but I totally understand why people get there. You know, that to me is a real, and sometimes people don't understand what I mean by that. And when I spoke to the doctor about that, like, they were like, well, you've been suicidal then. I'm like, no, I don't, but I understand that how bad and how dark of a place and how your mind, and it is, as you say, someone could be saying, you're shit, you're not worthy, and blah, blah, blah. And you can just bounce that off, you know, it's fine. But as you say, as soon as that gets into your head and you go, actually, I am shit and no one wants me around and I can understand it. I totally understand it. And it is not the way to go. We all know that, but.
Yeah. Well, this is one. So I have struggled with suicidal tendencies in the past.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest, like, I had at the very beginning of COVID, my whole life fell apart, literally, like, massively. I ended up homeless in a pandemic with nowhere to go. I ended up moving in with my ex again for like 3 weeks. I lasted 3 weeks, and it ended in me saying to her and my daughter's faces, I'm just going to go and kill myself. And her response was, just get it done then, just go. But do you know what? Like, in the moment, it was horrible. Like, not only did I feel more shame for saying that to my blooming 2-year-old daughter, she didn't understand what's going on, but I did. But actually, like, in hindsight, it led me down some realizations that really helped me manage it, which is really hard to admit because, like, I literally dragged my ex out over Facebook over it. Like, I wrote a massive post saying that she just told me to go and do this thing.
Yeah.
But actually, like, I continued with my journey through therapy. And one of the things that I personally have found really valuable in diminishing the power of those thoughts was in accepting that they are actually completely fucking valid. Like the truth is, in my life, a lot of people, I know, like, for example, like, this is really harsh, right? And hard. This is difficult. We're taking this conversation to a difficult place at the very end. But, like, me and you know each other tangentially, right? Like, we've got a relationship. But one of the realizations I came to is, if I did kill myself, there's like a 3-week media window on that where people are thinking about it. And then there's about 4 people in the world that would still carry it with them, probably, right? Like, it would affect you, for example. You'd probably be gutted, especially now after this conversation. But ultimately, it's not going to, maybe it would. I don't know you very well, but maybe, I don't think it would ruin your life and leave you in a depressive state. And I think, like, coming to that realization of actually, like, there are quite a few people that I mean the world to it's them that are worth sticking about for, right?
Hmm.
Like it's not, because a lot of my thoughts were driven from this expectation of achieving greatness. Like a lot of it was
Yeah.
like, I want to change the world, I
Yep.
want to excel, I want to be great, I want people to write my name down and remember it because
Yep.
I've got a legacy, because I've achieved stuff. And it was like reflecting on, am I moving in that direction? No. Well, then what's the fucking point? So like a lot of it was played on with those sorts of thoughts. So yeah, I found that. And then it was just kind of like, to me, like, there is a harsh truth that is, if you are living in these thoughts every day you wake
Yeah.
up and you still feel like you're a piece of shit and you hate yourself and you look in the mirror and you're ashamed of your decisions, it would be easier if I was dead. Like for me, if I was dead and I didn't think anymore, that is a bonus.
Yeah.
But it fucks over all these other people. And it was, for me, it was my daughter that basically saved my
Yeah.
life, if I'm
Yeah.
honest. Like, I think if she didn't exist in COVID, if I was still living with my ex, but we didn't have my daughter, like I came really
Yeah.
close, man. Like really close to driving my fucking, like literally went to drive off a bridge and turned my car back onto the road and then drove to hers instead. And it was at that point where I fell apart and I was like, I've got to do something about it. And it was therapy that properly helped. And it
Yeah.
was also um bending the knee to medication. My entire life, I'd said no to
Oh,
meds. I'd said
really?
no, I can manage it myself. Yeah, and it was going on to Prozac
Yeah.
for like 9 months.
Hmm.
Just took it all away, and now I'm off it. And it's definitely like when I was on Prozac, it was easy to not feel these bad thoughts.
Yeah.
Now I'm off it. It takes effort to not feel these bad
Yeah. Yeah.
thoughts,
Yeah,
and
of
so
course.
definitely something I've noticed. And if anyone in chat has ever felt those thoughts, and if you ever feel like it's getting too much, I just personally, my only advice is listen to the fucking doctors. Because no
Mm.
matter how intelligent you think you are, or no matter how bright or informed you think you are, there's so much science to show that
Yeah.
these can help. They're not a long term. I don't think they should be something that you take till the day you die. I think
Hmm.
that like our brain can find a new normal.
I agree.
But like they have a purpose, they have a value, and for
Yeah.
me, I think the combination of them and just having my daughter or an external focus
Yeah.
basically saved my life.
That's insane.
I laugh. I only laugh. That's one
But
thing I'm working on in therapy at the moment because I laugh away really
yeah,
emotionally
but
charged things. I try
that's
to use humor to take the sting out of it,
that's a
but
very British thing, though, isn't it? It's a very
it
British
is.
thing.
It is. You're
Um,
right, mate.
but no, you are right. I believe there are people out there that will not take meds, and I know people out there that will not take meds. And as soon as they kind of said, I was one of them really, and as soon as she offered me meds, the doctor, that when I first went and saw, I was like, no, and she goes, we'll put you on a low dosage and just see how it goes, and it will take X amount of months or X amount of weeks before it work. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it, and and it didn't. It did take a while because I think I jumped from one set of antidepressants to another, upped it, downed it, then came off them totally. Now I'm back on them. Then I went up another level when we had to move, obviously, to Scotland. I actually, obviously, then upped the dose, like spoke to the doctor and they upped it for me. And, so they are there. And the same with like beta blockers. I was on beta blockers for my panic attacks. And as soon as I feel that something was coming on, I would take it and it would then hopefully work before it kind of really kicked in. I'm totally off them now. But again, at the time, they helped massively. So you are right.
Yeah.
You do have to listen, and obviously listen to them, but also as well take it with a pinch of salt, because it isn't always going to be the answer, but it is a help. And again, if you don't think it's working as well, speak to you. Don't just say, oh, they're not working, and just stop. Because I know people that have been on quite high doses to start off with, and then gone, they're not working, stopped instantly, and they've come off it and crashed frigging hard. Because they actually then realise actually they were doing something, but it takes the crash to realise.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Makashi is 100% right. When you talk to the doctors or talk to therapists or anything like that, they are, yeah, they know a lot more than sometimes you think. Like, and the same with me. I don't go to therapy now, but when I did go to therapy, like, I don't think it's for me now, But at the time, it was, and it made me start talking about it. As soon as I started talking about it, that then was like, well, actually, I'm now happy to talk about it. I can talk about it to my friends, my online friends, my stream, my community, my other half, my parents, my, every single one. I'm happy to talk about my whole life. I don't care, as long as it kind of helps other people or helps me in a slightly kind of, selfish way. As I say, this podcast is out there to help other people realize that you can talk, but in a selfish way, this does help me as well. It just
little bit of ad hoc therapy, I
it
guess.
is,
In a sense,
100% it is.
yeah.
This is
I
like
think,
we're at a pub having a chat, and it's a little bit of therapy.
I think there's definitely something to say in like there's a concept in business at the moment. I don't know how much you've heard of this called psychological safety, which is something that
Nope.
when you're like building a company and you're trying to define what is the culture, what are the expected implicit norms of that culture,
Mm-hmm.
psychological safety is something that's really important if you want to have people that will say no, and if you want to have people that will argue against ideas, like,
Okay.
and it's quite important for innovation.
Yeah.
So psychological safety is kind of what you're describing there, is that like you're psychologically safe in being vulnerable with your experience and with your learnings and with your failings and
Yep.
stuff like that, right? Which is a really big step to take.
Yep.
Um, I think the best side of it as well is that it's like self-feeding. Like by being more open and vulnerable about these challenges, you take so much power away from them over you
Yeah.
that then it becomes easier to be vulnerable about them again, because like when you share it, you really do share the load.
Oh
Like
my God.
it
Yeah.
sounds so cliche, but it is so true, and
Yeah.
it is so like relieving when you
Mm-hmm.
realize that everyone else is having really similar thoughts.
Yes.
And do you know what? There's one like point that I've been dwelling on recently that's I think a positive spin to like nose up out of some of the stuff we've touched on,
Yeah.
which is I've been really dwelling recently on this idea that we are like we're now, right? Like we're alive now, and there's no one else has ever been alive now. Like we are at the absolute bleeding edge. No one has ever thought what we're thinking.
Yep.
No one has ever known what we know. Like there's never been. So it can be quite interesting. Like a lot of the time, I think the human mind tries to look at our past and try to answer why is this happening now? Or I'll try and look at my past experiences.
Yeah.
Right. Like, oh, when I was a kid, this thing happened and it was similar. So maybe it's to do with that. But actually, like, no one's ever had to deal with the things we're dealing with.
No.
There is no book for
Exactly.
this. Like, there has never been a society that we can find records of where people spoke in these terms about mental health,
Yes.
where we had the tools available. So, like, it can be terrifying, but I think ultimately we are in an incredible, like, time to be alive. It is.
Oh my God. Yeah. 100%.
Nothing like this has ever existed.
No.
And so yeah, there's a responsibility that comes with that as well,
Yes, of
because we
course.
are at the front. But I think ultimately that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like everyone does need a bit of pressure, right, to keep him moving
Oh,
forward.
100%.
So I think
Otherwise,
it's
you do need that pressure
yeah.
always.
So that's my thing I've been dwelling on recently. It's just like this to give myself some slack. Like there's no user manual for this. No one's done it before. No one has ever raised children in the world where we have 4K TVs and tablets and phones that are as powerful as the supercomputers when we were born.
Yep.
Like that's not been done before. No, like people will say it's bad for a kid to sit and watch telly all day, but we don't actually know that. Like we are the experiment happening now, right? We're the first generation of people that grew up with TVs.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, exactly.
we don't know. Like, yeah, we're a bit fucked up, but then look at our parents. God damn, like they went through some shit.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm not even talking about it. So I think we're in a bit of a better position, but
Yeah.
I think it's just a message of like giving us some credit where credit's due.
I agree with that. A bit of slack and a bit of, again, you definitely do need to sit back and look at things and go, holy crap, like we are the first to do this. And yeah, exactly that. There is no manual, there is no, road to go down. Like it is, and this was really similar because we were talking about this with my nephew, and he's going to secondary school next year, and the teachers and that, like, they were obviously having conversations with the teachers, going slightly off, and they were saying that Yeah, so we don't actually know when he actually finishes school and does his GCSEs or uppers or lowers or whatever they're called here in Scotland, like all that type of thing. We don't know what the jobs are going to be. So we can't actually train people because we actually don't know what the jobs are going to be. So as long as you've got your normal, English, math, science, as they always do, but a lot of them probably aren't even going to be worthwhile. They will, obviously, but do you know what I mean? No one
Oh,
actually fully knows what is going to be happening. Um, you know,
completely.
yeah,
It is a like that. Yeah, you're. Oh, I could talk for hours
I know
about
it's
that
crazy,
because
isn't
it
it? It's
is
absolutely crazy.
such a fucking coin flip about what are we even doing with our kids.
I
Like, should
know,
I
I
even be
know.
teaching my daughter about money and about the concept of work ethic and stuff? Like, if you actually look at the trajectory of technology and stuff, it's
Yep.
most likely that I would say like 80% of the jobs that we think of as jobs today would be automated.
Hmm.
Like when you think about it, but then people said similar things to me when I was a kid, so
Well,
I have to take it
exactly.
with
How
a grain of
much?
salt.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I don't know. It just seems so. It feels like right now we're at the point where it's almost the opposite. Like we could automate all these jobs,
Hmm.
but our society hasn't caught up with the technology, so we're not ready to automate them all. Right? Like
Yeah.
if we automated all the cars, then we've got no truck drivers, no taxi drivers, no drivers, and so that's like hundreds of thousands of people that don't have a job that now don't pay tax, so we can't have the NHS.
Yes.
So like, there's so many knock-on effects
Yeah. Yeah.
of all
Yeah.
in a basic job like that that
Hmm.
we're not ready as a society, and we clearly don't have a political class that are willing to actually make any progress on them issues, right? Like
I
they want to
know.
keep it as, oh, I'll go to the Queen and
Yeah.
bring my 19-carat gold stick, and she'll tap me on the bum with it. Yes. Like, that's all they're interested in. They don't want to have like Neuralink and shit, where I can think about things and you can hear them in my
Mm.
voice in your brain. So we
It is. It is. It's a scary world for bringing little ones up, but it's exciting at the same time, But right, as always, mate. That was wicked. But
always.
as always, I will ask: have you got any final thoughts? Anything you want to kind of, you know, say, or something that we haven't talked about? Before we kind of finish up.
Just to say, I know you got some numbers scrolling along. I think that's legendary. Like,
Hmm.
can't recommend to anyone viewing. If you ever do find, in particular, if you're managing like an internal mantra that's revolving around shaming yourself,
Hmm.
the the biggest thing you can do to take the power away from that is phone one of these numbers and
Yeah.
just say it to the person on the end of the phone. And
Yeah.
don't give a shit about how you feel, don't care about what they might think.
Yeah.
Just fucking say it. It can be the most vile, sordid, disgusting thing that you think about yourself.
Yeah.
Say it, and the second you say it, it will lose 40% of its power over you, like that, and
Yeah.
you will probably feel that physically. And yeah, just use these services because they exist. And I've used the Samaritans myself.
Yeah.
It was hugely useful, way cheaper than therapy.
Yeah.
But you won't get the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's not the
agree.
same as therapy because it is a throwaway thing. It's
Yeah.
kind of like you just chuck yourself into it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Um.
that's it. Like use these services.
Yeah, I agree. I think, that's why I do. I know there's loads of others, and I know there's loads of other numbers throughout Europe and the world and America, and whoever's watching this, I know there's different numbers. But, here in the UK, like I've actually rung every single one of these personally about myself and also other people. So, even if you aren't someone who struggles with mental health, but you know someone who is or may be struggling, call these yourself and try and get advice of how to talk to someone or how to actually get someone to start opening up is really important. Even before I went through my whole breakdown, I actually rung Mind and spoke to Mind about someone, and they were brilliant. They were so helpful. They gave me a load of kind of different websites to go and look at, and actually spoke to me about how I could try and get someone to open up. And and it is really hard. We always know that the hardest thing is that first step, and talking to someone, I think, on a phone and you don't actually know who that person is, you don't see a face, you don't see anything like that, I think is really good, because you could ring that number 20 times and hang up and it doesn't matter. Then at the 21st time you'll then start speaking. It doesn't matter, as long as you are taking them steps and you're just slowly, it's fine. They deal with so much stuff, as Makashi says. Like, they are brilliant. The people on these other ends of the phones are brilliant, and again, this is why we do promote our Discord and other Discords out there as well. We are there to kind of, just kind of take a little bit of ease. And if you have anyone that you can talk to, just try and open up. It is a massive thing. It does
100%.
take a massive weight off everything. It really does,
Mm.
and it starts the ball
I think
rolling in the right direction.
just one. This is actually my final thought,
Yeah,
which is what you were just touching on there, which is like the act of being able to talk about these
yeah,
things, as Lovemit and I have done today, is a muscle thing. It's a
hmm,
brain thing. The brain is a muscle. You don't get good at this stuff without doing it. And
exactly.
do you know what I mean? It
Yeah,
is terrible and painful and hard to do at first, just like picking up a 20-kilo dumbbell was when when you're 17.
yeah,
But through repetition and through acceptance of that process, you get to a place where you can actually then manage it and do it on a much more consistent basis. But yeah, everything comes at a cost, obviously.
yeah,
Like,
exactly,
yeah.
mate.
Oh,
That's been awesome. Honestly, I appreciate it so much, and I massively appreciate opening up about everything and chatting away. And it's been awesome. It really has. Really, really
thank you.
has.
My pleasure.
So as always, all Makashi stuff is go and obviously look at his stream. Obviously, go and check him out on obviously it's only pixels, Discord. We are always there, like just to have a chat, anything like that. And with regards to kind of anything along those lines, just yeah, as I say, just open up. His details are there. It will be on descriptions on Spotify and on YouTube when this goes out. So yeah, as always, mate, thank you so much. I will love you and leave you and sign off, and come speak to you in a bit. But yeah, appreciate it as always, Makashi. So guys, that was awesome. Like honestly, I love it. Like getting people to come on this podcast and chat about their stories, because everyone is different, but everyone is kind of coming in at the same point at some time. So everyone has very similar experiences with mental health and depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and anorexia and all these kind of issues. Like people really do. We all go through a very similar thing. How we get there though is totally different, and being able to kind of realize that and show everyone's different stories. People aren't alone. You're not going through this alone, and having Makashi come on and talk about this has been brilliant, and it's the same as every other person that's been on the podcast. I massively appreciate it. So as I will say, as always, this is on YouTube, Spotify, and obviously Twitch here today. So yeah, you can obviously go and catch up on all the other stuff on all of them platforms, to catch up on all the episodes. I think this is episode 15. Should have said that at the beginning, but I can't really remember. So we're doing this every Sunday 1 p.m. I appreciate everyone so much for sticking around and being in the chat and chatting away. Appreciate Makashi for being here again, and as always, thank you so much, and look after your mental health.